Child's Play Math, Unit 4. Vocabulary. Algebra before arithmetic. Okay, many parents will be asking right now, why introduce vocabulary before arithmetic? Well, it's because number is an abstract concept and it's difficult for young children to grasp. Let me give you an example. If I said to you, get me one, your response would be, get me one what? Because in and of itself, one has no meaning at all. It's actually easier for children to learn basic math concepts via algebra before being introduced to number. Eventually, when number is introduced later in the program, children will have no problem because the concepts are already familiar to them. How long will it take? That is, how long will it take to introduce the vocabulary? Well, young children can be introduced to the vocabulary over a short period of time. It doesn't take very long. Older children will obviously grasp it more quickly, and adults more quickly still. The first vocabulary we introduce is the color names of the rods. This is quickly followed by the letter names. Okay, I'm now working from within the software that is all available to you. If you haven't received the software, just look at the bottom of the video on YouTube with the little explanations there, and you'll see a link to a download link that you can click on to get the video, to get the software. I'm sorry. Okay, let's have a look. Let's start with just take the white and drag it on there. Red. We call this light green. You can explain to the children why we call it light green, because there are two greens. One is light green and one is dark green. So the smaller one we call green. We'll just call it green. Pink, some children like to call it purple, but pink. Yellow. And this is obviously dark green, because it's darker than the other green. And we have black, tan, not brown, tan. It's important we call this tan, and that will become apparent in a moment. Blue and orange. So those are the color names of the rods. Now, if I go to settings, setup, and click on show letters, okay, you now have the letter names of the rods. W for white, that's straightforward. So is R for red. G for green, because we call the smallest, the light green rod is going to be known as green. G for green. P for pink. Y for yellow. And because you already got a green, we say D for dark green. So the dark green rod becomes D. Black is B in a small letter. The reason for this is because we have two rods whose color names begin with B. So for black we have B, and for blue we have B, but in uppercase letters, not lowercase. So the black is lowercase b, the blue is uppercase B. And then we have T for tan, between the B and the T. So between the two B's we have T for tan, and the reason we call it tan probably is now obvious. Otherwise we'd have three B's, and we've only got an uppercase B and a lowercase b to deal with, so it's easier to call it T for tan. And finally, the orange rod is O for orange. So you've got white, red, green, pink, yellow, dark green, black, tan, blue, and orange. And those are the letter names that we give to the rods. It's important that children get those names, because we'll be using that later on as they interpret the mathematical sentences that they will be creating. They're actually doing it now when they just play with the rods. But we will be making it a more conscious effort for them to be able to see, be able to read the sentences they're making. And if we go up to settings again, setup, I'll clear the letters this time and click on numbers. Later stage we will introduce the number names of the rods, and you will see that it's quite easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We don't want initially children to associate one rod with a particular number. For example, the black rod isn't 7, it's a black rod made of wood. And if we wanted to represent something else, we can. Just jumping on a little bit here. For example, if I wanted the red rod to represent 1, which rod would then have the value of 2? Children have to have this mental ability not to have a fixed asset for any one rod. But for most of the time when we work with rods later on, obviously with number, white will represent 1, red 2, green 3, pink 4, and so on. I hope that clarifies things for you. Can I just say again, if you haven't got the software, look on the link below the YouTube video and it should be available to you. Okay? Now let's take a look at symbols, sentences, and equations. Young children are quick to realize that the letter O represents the orange rod. They will eventually write sentences or equations they have constructed with the rods and can visualize in their minds. After all, that's all equations are mathematical sentences. For example, T plus R equals O. Or the children will visualize that in their minds as the tan rod plus the red rod equals the orange rod. They won't actually be using those terms initially. They'll just think that when I put a tan rod next to a red rod, it'll be the same length as an orange rod. Later, they'll have no problem exchanging number names for the letter names of the rods. And they'll just as easily say 8 plus 2 equals 10. Obviously, they won't be using, as I say, those terms straight away. Those are things we introduce as we introduce the concepts through the program. Visualization or mental imaging. Visualizing or mental imaging is just one of the abilities that our brain possesses, and it needs to be encouraged and developed in our children. In the next video, we begin to introduce the terms and phrases children will need to know as we continue to work and play with the rods. Thanks for being with me. I look forward to seeing you and speaking with you in the next video. Thanks.